There's some over there.
Okay.
What about over there?
I thought I'd start with a couple of quotes here which have genuinely influenced my thinking about holography. Okay. We think in pictures but understand with words. I think that's a truism. I think, for me anyway, art is about images, it's about pictures. And the majority of the time when we're working within science, it's about words. So that's a terribly important concept to hold. It's a balance, it's a contrast of thoughts going on here. The second thing is about science. And I believe this is true also by Richard Dawkins. Science offers the best answers to the meaning of life. Science offers the privilege of understanding life before you die, why you were ever born in the first place. Monumental question, why we're here. And I think Dawkins really nailed that one. So, it's going to be about head, really. When I put this talk together, I thought, you know, it would be better to have a logical progression so I can explain to you how I arrived at where I am now. And of course, I scrubbed all that out and decided to do it the other way around. So we're going to start with the most up-to-date stuff and work our way back. Starting with, well, how do you make a hologram? Well, one of the ways is to use a moving camera on a rail system. The camera moves along the rail and takes 180 photographs as it goes. Another way is a digital scan of a three-dimensional form. Time slice, which we've all seen in films such as The Matrix. The more traditional method of producing a hologram is the use of the laser, which we'll come back to that. But of course now we're living in the age of digital media. And for me, the progression over the past 10 years has been much more focused towards synthetic holography. Now, we've got one here. That's a computer-generated hologram. And you'll see it contains many of the aspects of traditional holography. You can see a very wide angle of view there. Can you see it over there? Yeah. And another one here, which we can look at a bit later on, but you'll see this one has got complete parallax in that it's got both the vertical and the horizontal. So later on when I finish my talk, we'll have a closer look at these. So here's a picture of the rail system. The subject matter in this case is Mr. Jonathan Ross. Not the Jonathan Ross, the namesake. You wouldn't believe how many doors it opens for this guy. Getting a restaurant table is not a problem. And recording him on the right-hand side is Paul Scattergood, one of our old MA students from the IOCT, who's now taking a PhD at the Royal College of Art. So this is how the camera works in principle. As the camera moves from left to right, the actual lens on the camera shifts. It moves independently from the film body. And that's terribly important, and there's a lot of math that's gone into that. Because of the distortions, if the lens didn't move independently, then the hologram becomes anamorphic. It becomes an abstract form. And that's one of the reasons it's so important. This is a hologram made a couple of years back by a very large, talented team of holographers. It was a commission from the Jersey Council to commemorate I think it was the Queen's birthday, commissioned by a guy called Chris Levine. He was the artist who got the commission. And Chris gave the commission to Rob Munday, Spatial Imaging, spatial imaging gave the commission to various people in the States, including Holographics North. But it just, I'm trying to give you the picture here of how holography is gaining momentum. So that was from the moving rail system. The next method is time splice, and here we're working with a guy called Tim McMillan, who invented a camera system which does this. This is where 180 cameras are taking one photograph simultaneously. So you get that incredible parallax. Freezing life, the second. Moving on to the more traditional form of hologram. This is where I have a chance to get my laser pointer up. So there's a laser. The laser split into two. One of the beam goes what we call the reference beam here onto a mirror, passes through a lens, and then expands over a piece of photographic sensitive material which has an incredibly high resolution. The second laser beam passes onto a mirror and illuminates our object. Now, fundamentally, when one is creating a hologram, the pure reference beam of light, or the photons from the reference beam, strike the plate first of all, and then the object beam, which is the light falling from the subject matter, carries information. It carries a wavefront formation of photons, okay? And they collide in a sort of three-dimensional matrix. And it's the collision of those photons, or the encryption of those photons over a piece of photographic material, normally silver halide, that produces the hologram. Okay, we'll come back to that because I know that's a kind of a big concept. So this is one of my first studios when I just left the Royal College of Art. This was in Acton. Believe it or not, the entire room is the camera. This is the laser here. This is called a pulsed laser. Pulsed because it emits a sudden burst of energy like a photographic flash gun. It's this sort of camera system or laser system which can record holograms of people. Peter Blake, for one, who was charming. He came to the studio. I drove him to my studio from Chiswick in my Mini, which was a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, Peter turned to me and said, you know what, I always thought the future was about men dressed in silver suits. And actually it's here now. I sent one of these to the portrait gallery. And got a very nice letter back from the curator at the National Portrait Gallery saying, "Dear Mr. Richardson, thank you so much for this lovely hologram of Peter Blake. Unfortunately, we've got so many images of Peter Blake, we can't really take this." I don't think they got the fact it was a hologram. So people, living creatures here. We've got a Madagascan fruit-eating bat. And all that's, that's great, but how can we find an application in the real world? How does this, what, can be relatively expensive technology pay for itself? What good is it to everyday life? So we're going to look at that now. I'm going to start with a quick picture of Dennis Gabor, the inventor of holography who developed the idea in 1947. Prior to the laser, he was looking at ways of improving the electron microscope using coherent light. And it wasn't until 1967 that the laser was invented, and in 1972, Gabor was given a Nobel Prize in physics. Unfortunately, I never met him. I sat at his desk once, and you could actually see where he carved his name in the wood. So let's have a look at a road map. This is a sort of a mind map that was put together by a physicist called Emmett Leith, who was developing holography in the early days. And he was trying to figure out how holography could move into so many branches of science and arts. He referred to this as the holographic octopus from which he could never escape. So this is my take on that. There's kind of weird similarities here. Remember the reference and the object beam and the way they come together to produce an interference or a standing wave? You can apply the same principle to predictive technology, okay? So here on the left-hand side, we've got the holographic applications, on the right-hand side, the technologies. And in my experience, technology needs holography, but it doesn't know about holography. So it's my job to go out there and, tell people about holography and basically educate industry. And what you find is that the intersecting section here comprises of things such as, let's point a few of these out. Well, we've got the medical. We know that three-dimensional scanning of bodies is coming into its own now to assist in more accurate diagnosis and operations and being more precise as to where to perform surgery. Telecoms industry are starting to use light waveguides using low-powered lasers to connect the super-fast broadband links to the internet. Up here in education, well, it's funny that entertainment and education is so close. I'm not sure why that is. Holographic tweezers, again, a medical application. The list is basically endless. And apparently, in textiles, they have a big problem because there's an enormous amount of fakes coming into this country from abroad. And it's very difficult to maintain standards and integrity of the type of fibres which are coming through. And when you consider that, many of these fibres go into things like airbags in cars or even parachutes and seatbelts, it's intrinsic to really guarantee that the fibres are genuine. We came up with a solution for that. We managed to emboss, and you can just about see there, this was the black piece of nylon, but we've embossed a holographic diffraction grating into that. So first level security, when it's going through the quality checks at the airports or in the manufacturing stage, is the operative would see a diffraction grating, a color shift. But more than that, because each segment can carry other information, an encryption or a word. And that leads us on to another invention of, it was mine and John Wiltshire's actually, a good friend of mine. And that was trying to produce a holographic disc of this nature. There's one here, which carries both picture and digital data. Can you all see that diffracting? Pretty, isn't it? Well, why select CDs? Well, we know there's a huge problem in piracy. This is an image here taken from the Philippines government in their fight against piracy. 2 million fake DVDs being crushed. What they didn't show you is 5 minutes later, all the kids were picking up the DVDs and reselling them. I don't blame them, actually. It's a very poor country. So we came up with a way of encrypting the holographic information over the data bit structure of the digital information within the disk. I thought I was going to be a millionaire. I thought I cracked it, So I took it to the DVD forum in Tokyo, and they looked at me and they said, yes, this is fantastic. We've been looking for this for years. It's going to save our industry. But it's not us you've got to convince. It's the content providers. So we then went to Disney and EMI and, did the rounds. And the message we got back was they actually wanted piracy to continue. It's great that kids pirate stuff because it's so awful. They then go and buy the good stuff. So it's almost a form of subliminal advertising going on, which is a bit dodgy. Kids love it. But the guys making money from this are ultimately the big corporates, and so that didn't go anywhere. Now, before I go on, you're probably wondering how a hologram contains information. Well, let's try something here. I'm going to kill this light. You've probably heard stories or read things about smashing a hologram into 1,000 pieces and each tiny segment containing the entire image of the hologram. And that's true. The thing is, you don't have to smash them up when you've got film. Now, what I'd like to do is, let's try and, okay, I'm going to project a hologram here. So give me a second, I'm just going to turn this lamp off. Use my battery-powered laser. Can you see it? Just a tiny millimetre of that hologram is being illuminated, and yet we're able to project the entire image. I'll do it for you over this side. All got that? It's very retro, isn't it? It's kind of cool. So that perhaps answers a question some of you may have been asking there about the diffraction gratings and the fibers or on the DVD, because if you shine a low-powered laser beam onto those fibers, the word original or genuine appears. Let's turn this back on. So, moving on to museum artifacts. One of the more exciting projects I worked on last year was with the Greenwich Maritime Museum to record the Harrison clock. Now, any of you who are engineers probably know about Harrison, or are fans of Harrison. John Harrison produced the first accurate clock in 1679, which sailed around the world to the Cook Islands and then back again. When it got back, it was only 3 seconds slow. Terribly important, because the clock was instrumental in setting longitude. And if we know where we are in longitude, we can fairly accurately predict where we're going to be at certain times, and we can avoid the reefs and shipwreck and so on. So here we've got a hologram of the Harrison clock. The insurance to cover the actual real clock was £14 million. I'd never been so nervous in my life. The guy got it out the bulletproof case, wearing white gloves, and I was going to shine a laser beam at it. Is this going to work? But it did, and thanks to people like Jeff Blythe, who's here this evening from Cambridge, the chemist involved in the project, it was a great success. So that's the Harrison clock. This is just after processing. My friend Mike Medora examining the plate. Experiment. We're going to try, this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try and make a hologram live over the internet. And we'll come back to that. So let's link up with an extremely nervous assistant of mine. Hi, Steve.
Good evening, Professor.
There you are, the magic of technology. Good evening, Stephen. How are you this evening?
I'm good. And how about yourself?
I'm fine. Would you jump up and down on one leg for me?
Oh, here we go.
That's fantastic. They love me. Okay, Steve.
How is the audience this evening? But I think I've got an idea.
You could be right. Okay, so talk us through for a couple of seconds some of the issues we're going to be dealing with here, because we're running late, okay?
Yes.
So we're going to have to give you a bit of time, but as quick as you can.
I'll be pretty concise.
Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Democrat University's Modern Holography Optics Laboratory. What you see assembled in front of you is, in a sense, a holographic camera. It's composed of an optical table, you see here, to support all of the optics and the laser that are going to be used in the imaging system. A lens to basically expand the laser light into a workable beam shape, and a construct, in this case, composed of a mirror, an area to hold the object in the film. The crucial point here is all of this has to be so structurally stable as to not even move several nanometers during the time of the exposure. So before I introduce the laser and show you a little bit about it, let me put on our laser safety goggles. For this evening's demonstration, we're doing a fairly straightforward type of a hologram where the light from the laser is coming across the table into this lens system, into the area to where the film is going to be located. The exposure time is relatively long, on the order of 15 to 20 seconds, so vibration is going to be a crucial aspect. So you will not hear me talking for any of that period of time. So in the urgency of time, let me get the lab prepared. I've got to shut off the light, so the image is going to get a bit grainy.
We're obviously using photosensitive film here, so we need to lower the lighting conditions in the lab. The material is panchromatic, that's full color. It's part of a new project we're working on. And we're using red light and a green laser beam.
So I'm preparing the holographic material out of its light tight carrier.
Steve?
Yes.
Let me ask you something.
Go right ahead.
When you've recorded this hologram,
Yes.
when you've recorded the hologram, bring it over.
I'll be glad to do that.
Only if it works. Otherwise, you're there all night.
If it doesn't work, I guess I need to finish packing and head out of town. Okay, so I've loaded the film, and I'm going to actually be a little bit quiet on this end. There's going to be a 4 or 5 minutes, so probably the best thing to do is, Martin, if you want to carry on and talk a bit about some of the other pertinent issues. And this will run in the background. You'll see the laser light come on, and the exposure will happen, and I'll be on my way over.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. So we go back to the PowerPoint whilst the plate's settling. And Steve wasn't kidding. If anything moves as much as a micron, you see it doesn't blur. It goes completely black. You end up with an object, a void within a space, which is really interesting if you're a fine artist. But if you're trying to record a 14 million pound clock that goes black, doesn't go down. Okay, so we've done the Harrison. We're making a hologram on Skype. Current work is called Psychedelic because I feel there's something very sort of 60s about the composition. And now on to my book. I thought it was time to write something like The Prime Illusion because far too often, when you go to the library to read about holography, you're confronted and confounded by these mathematical books on physics and chemistry. And I just wanted to broaden the spectrum a little bit and look at where holography is going.
Well, I think we have it.
I missed it. I'm so sorry. Steve, are you saying you've actually finished?
We've got a hologram. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Did you make that earlier?
No.
Okay, you better not
You'd
have.
like to feel, but no, it's happening in real time. There you have it, first ever.
Bring it over.
See you.
Steve,
Yes,
tell them what was it an image of?
this is an image of a 2-pound coin.
That's the £2 I gave you earlier, right?
Yeah, I'll give it back.
Okay. Goodbye, Steve Smith. Right. So this is where I'm going to start to regress into a child. And I'm showing you now work I finished a few months ago. This is Digital Dreams. It's taken from a hologram in process. This is going back 10 years now. One of the largest commissions in my books before I joined the university and became an academic was from David Bowie. And David commissioned me to make a series of very large format lenticulars and some small holograms of him promoting his album Hours. The largest commission I'd ever worked on, and the best paid. It paid for 3 years' tax bills. It bought me a Mercedes car. And you know what? Once you taste how sweet that can be, nothing touches it. So, you know, you pursue these things and you never get another chance. But it was great fun, and I'm still in communication with Bowie. Martin Scorsese here, who came to my studio, stroke lab in Acton, and I recorded a series of holograms of him as pulse holograms. You can see this one here on display. Moving further back in time, 20 years now, to my time at the Royal College, one of my first pulse holograms here. It's a bit of a strange composition, but I was so pleased that I was given access to a pulse laser for the first time. I gathered all the things that I recorded as continuous wave objects on my head and had a cheeky smile. Played around with doves, naked young women, water running, surrealist imagery. You know, and all of these were extensively shown around the world. And with the help of people like Andy Pepper, who's in the audience here tonight, really helped promote the work. All of that work came together in my first book, Spacebomb, which included images from certain exhibitions. This is from the Smith's Gallery in Covent Garden, a display of holograms. Japan, Tokyo here. And now we're moving back 25 years. This is one of my first holograms. A lot of concern within the art circles at the time. I was still at art school. Concerns about land art, conceptual art, Robert Smithson, Goldsworthy, you name it. So a logical progression at that time is to start integrating holography into landscape rather than gallery. And all of that was influenced by these early pieces of sculpture. Hi. Okay, too good to miss. Come on, no, come back. Let's see if it worked.
There you go.
Very well done. Okay, that's... Can you all see that? So £2 coin. You'll notice there wasn't any chemistry involved. This is a photopolymer. And basically, what's happened is the monomer linkage there has created a very bright, instamatic hologram. So no need for processing at all. That's got to be the future, and I know that Ilford are very keen on pursuing that possibility. So well done, Steve.
Thank you.
Is this my £2, or do you have the real one on?
You don't want to keep that one. It's better. It's a hologram.
I'll sell this for £5. So that's there for you to examine, ladies and gentlemen. Back to the art. Mirrors in Landscape, one of my first attempts at looking at reflection. And this is really how I became involved in holography. From mirrors, from conceptual art, from photograms. This is me as a 19-year-old kid making a huge photogram of myself. Some of the early paintings. So we're going to finish there on my first painting when I was 17. So it's been quite a weird journey, hasn't it? How do you get from that to this? I don't know. But it's been a lot of fun. So that's really, in a nutshell, the end. Thank you.